Ladies and G-strings. Now, since you asked me, I'm going to do a restring for this Wednesday's cheeky midweeker. And I shall show you what I use. I tend to buy guitar strings in bulk because, of course, that works out cheaper. And these are absolutely my favourites. And this will be today's string of choice. The Harley Benton 942 to go onto this lovely, lovely, lovely Squire Strat. This is the Standard Series 20th anniversary. And a real belter it is. And I've neglected it for so long. So, a couple of things on strings before we get started. There is so much confusion out there about who makes which. Apparently anything with a coloured ball end is always made by D'Addario, which would mean also your Fender strings. How true this is, I really don't know. There's a whole load of theories. Philip McKnight from Know Your Gear, or Sharpen My Axe, reckons that there's only a handful of string manufacturers out there. How true this is, I really do. I have obviously made a research, but there's no real concrete evidence one way or another. So, what I will show you is how I restring your guitars. Let's go! Number one, what I do like to do, if a guitar has actually got a set of strings on already, is I like to do the setup prior to the restring. So I will use my notched edge to mate. Come on, Dad. Good boy. So I like to use the notched edge, of course, to check the neck straightness and relief, to make sure that there's no truss rod adjustment required. I will also use the string rocker, which has short, medium, long, and longer edges on it, so that you place this over three frets, and you move it along and you rock it to make sure that there are no frets that need levelling out, because of course that affects your action and playability and choking and buzzing and all sorts of things. If they do need sorting out, then out comes the file and they get done. The other thing that I check is the string height, level, mate. And so we make sure that that's at, within manufacturer's tolerances, and it usually probably, I like them reasonably low, but not totally under that. So, but that is very, very much a personal preference. Come on, son. So let's crack on. You will need a string winder and clipper, so that you can trim off the excess, and I'll show you obviously how much extra string you should have. It's a fairly standard and straightforward rule. And I'm also going to replace the string, but because this has a vibrato system, I'm going to change the string butterflies, which are a bit crude and what have you, for these string roller trees, which should lessen the amount of resistance, certainly when you're bending your strings. Alrighty, I'll make many cuts in this. I'll show you the first bits of what I'm doing, and then of course, press pause when it comes to something boring. Now, of course, you don't need any special tools at all to restring your guitar. I mean, I've only shown you the stuff that I do because I do probably quite a thorough job whenever I'm restringing. So really, all you do need is your hands to turn the tuning pegs, and preferably a pair of wire clippers, but I suppose a decent robust pair of scissors will do. But do restring your guitar as often as is necessary, because strings go off and they lose their ding. Now also, what I did want to point out regarding string choice is that I have got 4 here, well, probably got more, but I'm just pulling these out. 4 different set of strings. We have got Fender strings, which quite clearly state nickel plated steel. These, what are these? Dunlop strings. Also, as far as I'm aware, also nickel plated steel. DRs. These are actually coated in a colour which is rather nice, but it does tell you nickel plated steel, and of course Ernie balls, which does tell you in the blurb there that they are nickel plated steel. So really the choice is yours, whatever you're most comfortable with, but I found absolutely no difference really between maybe it's just my ears, maybe it's me who's at fault, but I find no difference between the others and these, which are nickel plated steel. So you pays your money and you get ripped off. Okie dokie. So so owing to technical difficulties, in other words, like the battery run flat, didn't charge the damn thing up. So what I have done is I've removed the backplate here. Now you can fiddle the strings through these holes, but it's 6 screws and it takes you 20 seconds to take the thing off, and it just makes life so much easier. And I have removed the bottom E string already, which was slightly it didn't really work on the camera, so just for completeness, there we go, unwinding a string, and you pull the thing out if you've unwound it enough. It's just easy with the string winder. Oh, and by the way, you can buy these, I mean really, to your door for very little money, and they are worth the investment. When I say very little money, I'm talking to your door for probably £5 or less. Oh, another little useful thing. When you get to the end of a string, which might be curly and slightly more difficult to pull through, once it's detensioned, fair enough, give it a clip at that end, and then you can pull it out very easily here without it snagging in your trem block, or in fact even if you've got a hardtail, it's all the same. Okay, so I'm now going to remove all the strings and just give the frets just a little bit of a whistle up, just to make them look a little more cheerful. So let's do that. Now Graham, one of my frequent contributors, had asked me, so if you bought a guitar that's got 9 gauge strings on and you're going to change to 11 gauge strings, do you have to think about neck straightness? Well, yes and no is the curious answer. Generally speaking, a stiffer string will create more tension on the neck, but not always. Depends what the neck's made of, depends how stiff it is, depends how thick it is. So not always is the answer. And really, the bottom line is that if it played great when it had 9s on, and you put it on and you put 11s on, and it plays like pants, then clearly then there will be a neck relief difficulty. But however, depending on the guitar, depending upon the materials, there are a million factors that change the dynamic of the way a guitar plays. And so if you put heavier gauge strings on than those that were originally fitted, and it's fine, bottom line is, it's fine. And so you don't need to do anything. But if you do put a different gauge string on and it plays less well than it did initially, then if you don't have the tools or that particular intimate knowledge, then whiz it down your local chap and just tell him what happened. And for something like that, they will very probably, very quickly sort it out and most likely not even charge you, because they want your repeat business, and that will be a pretty straightforward thing to sort out. Okay. The next thing is, what we can see in the neck here on the frets is we can see a few little marks, particularly down here in the, as they call it, the cowboy cord area, where there's actually, they're not even, I felt them, you can see the marks in here, but when you run your finger on them, and your finger is just the most sensitive thing, but I can't feel any divots, so there's no need for any fret dressing or other action required. All I'm going to do is give them a little clean up using the fret guard, and I know that this is not popular, fret guard and just a tiny bit of wire wool, and that will make them all shiny and happy. What I will do is I'll use painter's tape over this neck pickup here, so that if any of the debris from the wire wool falls off, it won't stick to the magnetic pole pieces here. So I'm going to do that and give it a bit of a general clean up, and then we'll set about restringing. So frets nice and shiny, and I use this very old, I don't know, 1950s maybe, brush to remove any debris, as I say, from the wire wall. And the next thing that I'll do before I give it a clean is I'll change these string butterflies for rollers, and it really is just a case of bunging a screwdriver in, taking them out and replacing them. Simple, easy, really easy peasy. Shall I do it while we're rolling, as they say? Very simple. Little screwdriver, off comes the old thing. We're still going to use the collar from underneath there, and the screw, obviously, because we know that the screw fits, that's for sure. Get the damn thing off. There we go. And so that goes in there. The little collar on there. Oh, that doesn't leave enough screw, so perhaps we'll not bother with the collar. Let's see how that goes. Do you know what? I think I might treat myself to a pair of spectacles for them. Oh, that's better. And, you know, apart from being a practical item, let me show you the difference. So, I mean, you know, it just looks nicer. Does that not look nicer? It does. Right. Okay, bit of a clean up and then it's string up. So, moving on, the two products that I've used to whistle this up, the body and the neck. On the body, I used the black version of T-Cuts, which, you know, it's good for black. Don't use it on anything else, for goodness sake. It'll just hopefully fill in any little scratches and obviously still remove any grime that's on there. And because this is a clear coated maple neck, we do not want to use lemon oil on it. No, we don't, because it will hurt it. So I use a non-silicon natural beeswax product, and that just brings it up beautifully. It's stringing time. So we're going to start with the bottom E, which is the thickest string of the 6 that you can put in. I simply thread it through the bottom of the tram block and then make sure that it pops out through the appropriate bridge saddle, giving it a bit of a wiggle and a pull to make sure that it's seated correctly. And here's the important bit for me. So you first of all want to get your tuning peg. Oh, hang on, I've forgotten something. Wait. Yes, sorry about that. So the other thing that I use is my little box spanner, just to nip up the peg heads to make sure that they're nice and snugly seated, because it will eliminate any, you know, buzzing or rattling from that area. And here's our string. So you're going to make sure this hole here is as straight as it can be toward the bottom of the guitar. We thread it through, and there's always a bit of play in these. So then I pinch it here at the first fret and pull it back to the second fret, and like I say, there will always be a little extra there, so that's probably about right. Wind, and as I'm winding it, I flop the end of the string over so that as it's winding, and I just put my finger on here to make sure that it winds down. When it gets to here, once it's gone round once, I bend the string up so it's out of the way, and then carry on with the wind, and you should have about 2.5 to 3 winds using this method. That won't be far off, and of course the neck will pull in a little bit once all of the strings are on, restoring the correct neck straightness and relief. And there we go, so that's it, all buttoned back up. The only thing left to do is to trim the strings, which is pretty straightforward. These are absolutely brilliant winder and a clip, and it's a very, very good clipper. So we'll clip on the strings, put the vibrato arm back in, and also screw in the cavity control plate at the back. But all in all, job done. So thank you all ever so much for tuning in. Oh, let me see, where are you now? There you are. Okay, so that's that, and thanks all ever so much for tuning in. Just one last little word before we go. Today is a very, very sad day. Sean Locke, one of our favourite comedians, I'm sure, has sadly passed away today, so R.I.P. Sean, and you know, condolences to all around him. And with that, I shall say adios amigos, tra, and I'll see you at the weekend. Bye bye.